to the first episode of the new season of Better Than Podcast. I'm your host, Lindsay Zimmerman, and today we are going to talk with my fine editor, Lorin. We have had a year off since we have done any of the podcast or anything with content creation for Better Than in general. I had some personal experiences that I was going through that made it pretty much impossible to be creative and productive in any way. But as soon as I was ready to get started again, Lorin, my editor, Lorin Key, was right there. And he was ready to pick it back up with me. So here we go. Here is season 2 of Better Than Podcast, episode 1 with Lorin Key.
As a coercive means, we do like weekends, except they get one day during the week, like during the school week, to play video games for like an hour. And I encourage Minecraft over all the other ones for the most part. So.
Yeah, because at least they're creative.
Yeah.
And that's both of those games. You can go into creative mode. Geometry Dash is really cool, where you create your own levels that you have to pass and stuff. So I do like that, but it's like my little one he is seriously addicted to games. And it just happened the very first time he ever played a game.
Yeah.
So like the temper tantrum that happens when it's time for the game to be over, that makes me seriously limit it, because I'm like, oh no, crackhead. No.
Yeah.
We're going to have to regulate this.
Yeah, we've noticed the same behavior challenges. And so, yeah. But I mean, man, as far as a tool for leverage, there's nothing else that's ever been invented, I think, that comes close to. You want to play video games? Here's the list. Here's the list of items you must complete.
Yes, exactly. Oh my gosh. And my little guy has, because it's been a hard year, especially for the kids. So he was having some anger issues and stuff like that. So when I got him back, oh man, he was a handful for sure, and so I will admit it, video games are one of the things that I use. Be nice to me and you will get to play video games was definitely on that list of criteria that he had to meet,
Yeah.
But he's had time to settle down, so that's not so much of an issue. Now it's just okay, no, you can't play them all day. That's just not good for anybody. Sorry, buddy. So he gets it.
Yeah.
But yeah, tools for leverage, because one of my favorite sayings is parenting is psychological warfare, because boy, it feels like that sometimes.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I have come to realize manipulation, that coming from a child that completely I didn't catch on. My wife was like, yeah, that's not real. He's playing it up.
He's working you. Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, they are very skilled.
Yes.
I'm not that gullible, I don't think, but the sweet ones you got to watch out for them.
Yeah, you do, because they know how to charm you. Every once in a while, one of my kids will come up and be like, I love you, or you're so pretty. And I'm like, what did you do?
Yeah.
What are you trying to not get in trouble for? I'm about to find out something horrendous has happened.
Yeah. Yeah. God, yeah, we live a lot of the same life, it sounds like. So.
That's parenting.
That's right.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Sorry. You probably can't hear. I don't know if you can hear on the mic, but I'm hearing bark, 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 both chihuahuas, and then Jude, shut up, like from 2 rooms away. We have very noisy dogs. Did you hear anything? Okay.
No, not at all, but that's really funny.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Well,
so tell me, I want to hear what this last year has been like for you, because I've been doing all my wild stuff, and we haven't really got to catch up, I feel like.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you and I talked briefly the other day, and I mean, I think the way you described it was a lot of, for you, figuring out who's in your corner. And I mean, I think that's a great thing to to riff on a little bit because,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, same for me, you know, and like the astrology of like the last 2 years, 2020, was nuts.
Explain that to me because I don't. I really enjoy astrology, but I don't really follow it too much, or at least I need to do a fair amount of reading on it.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I guess like a lot of people predicted, a lot of astrologers predicted the pandemic. Not a lot, a couple of them did. A lot of them, but like everyone knew 2020 um, would be a big deal in the world,
Yeah.
like people had different theories about what that meant. But you know, like Saturn Pluto conjunctions, and then I think what is Uranus Saturn square, and like all these things. There's this guy Richard Tarnas that used to write like academic textbooks. He wrote a book called The Passion of the or no, Passion of the Western Mind was his academic one, and then um, the one that I read was Cosmos and Psyche, and he's charting these, you know, long-term historical cycles related to astrology. So anyway, that obviously shifted the world with the pandemic, but I think that there's a way that it kind of there were a lot of karmic resets on a like personal relationship level too, and
Yeah.
and I think a lot of a lot of it for people, a lot of people, I think it was just related to the pandemic, just the stress, like you know, having to manage that. But you know, I mean, I think for me, uh, like my wife and I, like we went through a lot, and I guess you know, I saw personally, like I had eclipses on, I had, you know, eclipse on my Venus and my moon, and like directly on my moon, and like it transformed my relationship, and it was, I mean, it was incredible. It was painful, and but I mean, where we got to on the other side was amazing. And so, you know, what, like my wife and I had actually, it kind of looked like that it might end for a short period of time, and that was really scary. But you know, like we always had a good relationship, like over the course of a lot of years, you know, my wife and I, just with kids, I mean, we had a kid go through cancer, and just stressful jobs and all that. We just kind of started to lose connection. And it was kind of slow and gradual, but um, I don't know. I mean, we still enjoyed being together, but it was just, there was some strain there. And then, like in 2020, everything broke. And so, um, you know, I think I talked to you a little bit about that a while ago, you know, but so I won't go into the detail, but I mean,
Yeah.
suffice it to say, like, um, someone like came into my life, and like you know, it was never like, like it was never physical. It wasn't even a relationship. It was just, it was kind of like flirting over messaging. And, but that, you know, that was a huge hurt to her when she discovered it. Um, and yeah, I mean, it was like, and she's an eighth house Mars, which is like Mars and Scorpio are kind of the same thing. And so, you know, the eighth house Mars is like incredible lover, but also a jealous one. And like, that's no slight. I wouldn't have it any other way, you know, but it
Right.
was a very, you know, it was a very intense period where, you know, we went to a therapist, and, you know, she ended up healing a lot of her childhood trauma too. And,
Wow.
um, but you know, like for me, it was my trauma that kind of cut me off from my whole heart. You know, I was always seeking, and you can't, if you can't give someone your full heart, and you can't fully accept them without judgment, then you don't have a properly functioning relationship. And I
Absolutely.
wasn't, you know, I wasn't totally devoted to the degree that I should have been. And so, I mean, it's the childhood, like the karmic game that we're all playing. Like you heal your childhood trauma, and you heal your current relationships, or you just cycle through more mirrors until you heal.
Mm-hmm.
um but yeah, I mean, it changed the energy of the whole house, because I mean, we were kind of like teenagers in love again, and so the
Mm-hmm.
relationship with our children got better, because you know, all that unhealed trauma kind of leaks into all of your relationships.
Yeah.
um but I guess my family it became clear, like my family is in my corner. Like we're all close now, a lot more so than we ever were. But
Yeah.
there were people that I realized during the same period of time, and it's really trying to just discovering it for the first time that they're never in my corner. They've never been, despite like impeccable appearances. They're
Yeah.
not there. They're not available. And so, I realized that, and I had to kind of withdraw my energy from these relationships, and I had to call them out, because like you don't want a big confrontation, but when it comes up, you just like, yeah, like you're not in my corner and you never have been, and I love you and I always will, but the relationship as it currently stands doesn't serve me. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's like incredibly hard, but
Yeah,
very
but this is
necessary.
detrimental, and I can't, if I love myself, I'm not going to do things that are detrimental, even if it involves dealing in family relationships.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, I feel that to my fucking bones, man.
Yeah,
It's hard because, and it's hard with family, but it's hard with friends too, because you always like, especially like the older you get, you feel like you're building your own tribe, that it's not just the family that's been allotted to you by your DNA, but it's like the family that you choose to have, and so when start reevaluating your life, like, and what you want from those relationships, and what you're giving and what's being offered back to you, and when you realize that those are detrimental relationships too, man, that feels just as painful as a familial split, because you have willingly invested in these people. You know what I'm saying? And
yeah,
it's not like you did it out of obligation because they're family. No, you hand selected them. So it's like very much an ego death, more Scorpio energy that
yeah,
you're discussing, so that makes a lot of sense to me.
yeah. Well, I mean, I would love to hear as much as you're comfortable with, and
Sure.
I think, I mean, there's been like a little bit of a hiatus. So, I mean, God,
Yeah.
I
We
can't,
had to
I don't
take a
even
whole
know
year off.
how you're back already.
We had to take a whole year off, huh? I, I've thought about it because I knew that I wanted to talk about it, because this is like, technically this is episode one, season two, and I feel like you and I are very good at that dynamic that I enjoy, the me, myself, and I dynamic, like we're very, very good at talking to each other without egos. And I'll express things to you, Lorin, as I would talk to myself, without treating myself with kid gloves, or putting on a front or appearances or anything like that, you know what I mean? And so I had been thinking about, like, well, what are we going to talk about exactly, and what needs to be talked about, because uh like the whole year was intense, from like the last work that we did on the crowdfunding campaign last year, all the way up until this week. Like it's been just a wild ride, and you don't even like really know where to start, except that I think that we can preface the whole recounting, however far into it that we can preface the whole thing by saying everything that happened in this last year was the result of like intense, I won't say unwilling, but unwitting uh spiritual awakening, you know? And I say unwitting because I had no idea what was happening. You know what I mean? Like I was just chugging along, and things had happened, like my ex and I splitting up, and that was very traumatic. And, you know, you find out after the fact about like the slander that's been said about you, and the backstabbing that's been going on. And, because I'm somebody who refuses to take off my rose colored glasses, I'll treat you at face value until I have reason not to, but so people, really not having my best interest at heart, you know, and realizing that, but to the level, you know, it's just like things going, you know, on, rumors happening, you know, behind my back about like my fidelity to my partner, and the you know, my work ethic, and just all kinds of slanderous stuff. There was, I mean, there was that part of it, and then we ended up having to go to court because my ex had filed a restraining order against me. I'm not going to get into the specifics, but he lied, you know, to make me sound threatening, and it was all to save his own ass, you know, so that he wouldn't have to move out of the house that we lived in when we split up.
Yeah.
And it was like that realization. And the only reason because I don't want to sit here and, you know, beat my dead horse, you know, but the reason that I bring it up, because it was the realization that this motherfucker really would throw me under the bus to save his own ass, and we're not family. You know,
Yeah.
it was like, and I had invested, we were together for 7 years, we had a kid together, you know, and that like cracked something open in me, you know, where it was like, it wasn't just a new awareness of my relationships, but it was a new awareness of what I was allowing myself to suffer, you know, because that relationship with my son's father was never a good one, maybe for the first 9 months or so. But after that, it was, I mean, honestly, it was a nightmare, you know? I mean, I wasn't physically abused or anything like that. But a strong person isn't willing to really like accept that they're being abused if nobody ever hits them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's really hard to admit that to yourself, that you're allowing yourself to suffer something that you shouldn't and don't deserve to suffer. And so, like I said, like that realization that this guy would just throw me under the bus, and my kids, you know, my kids were out of the house for a month too. You know, it was pretty wild and hard on them. You know, they didn't know what was happening. But for somebody to be willing to cause all of that just to feel like they got one over, or they
Yeah.
won the argument, or they got what they wanted, it was so enlightening to me. And then I really started looking at how other people interacted with me and engaged with me. And it was really apparent that like I had been kind of turning a blind eye for a very long time in a lot of my relationships. And that's that realization that like, oh, wait a minute, like I have not selected quality relationships in my life, you know, like it was such a deeply like I said, like such a deep ego death, you know, because what have you been doing? You know, what
Yeah.
have you been doing this whole time, your whole adult life? What have you been investing in, and how
Yeah.
is it serving you? And it just made me like really evaluate like what have I been investing in, and is it really serving me? And you know what I mean? Because like for most of my adult life, I was a hairstylist, you know, and I made a lot of money doing that, but I never was like satisfied with the work. And it's not that like I just, you know, couldn't find myself being happy where I was at. That wasn't really it, because I actively made sure that I enjoyed going to work every day, you know, like I'd been doing hair long enough where I could have clients that I wanted to see. You know, I had coworkers that I liked to be around. And so I had tailored it as much to my liking as I wanted. You know, I was self-employed, so I made my own schedule and all of that. But it wasn't, like I basically hit the ceiling with it. And not just that, but it wasn't as like emotionally, spiritually satisfying work as I had hoped to be doing in my life, you know? Um, so I started evaluating, you know, what my living was, what my work that I was putting into the world, you know, what is this something that I've been investing in that is ultimately not going to get me where I want to be, you know? Is this are these people that take, you know, every time we are around each other, we're, exchanging energy back and forth. And these people that are exchanging energy back and forth with me are these people that ultimately should be there with me on this journey as I'm trying to accomplish my life's purpose, which is, you know, it's hard because it's hard to find people who want to talk about their life's purpose and like the mechanics of it and how they think that they're going to be able to accomplish it, and if they are even dedicated to accomplishing it. It's hard to, and I was realizing that anytime I brought up that kind of stuff or wanted to talk about that kind of stuff, I would just kind of get like, you know, like, oh yeah, that's good. I believe in you. You can do it, and then like, let's change the subject because that's real weird and I don't feel comfortable talking about that, is really what I would get from the not just my coworkers in the industry that I was in, but my friends that I had cultivated relationships with. We'd, raised kids together and stuff, and they just were not it's not that they weren't on board, it's they didn't even understand like how to support me, you know what I mean? And so it became like this real weird dynamic in all of the relationships that I had, because while all of that was going on, I started becoming really sick. And I know now what it was is I was having a candida experience in my gut that was really jacking my system up bad, real bad. And we can get into healthcare and doctors and how they waste your money, but don't really give you any solutions and all of that. But what it boiled down to was like, I was really sick. I was unable to get up to go to work to provide for myself. And the people that I thought would be there, Jordan Peterson talks about, what kind of person are you going to be when the flood hits? Are you going to be a rock for your family? Are you going to help keep the peace when tensions are high and, all of that stuff? But what happens when the flood hits you? Who do you have around you when the flood hits you? And if you do need to rely on other people, do you have the people around you that are going to be able to get you through? And after off and on spending a whole winter sleeping in my car, I realized not very many people around me were going to be that rock, like the flood was hitting me, and I just realized, wow, I need to really clean house, with not just my own energy, because there were things I think that I could have done that would have made that period maybe not as difficult. But I was so, I guess, devastated. I was so devastated. It was hard to think clearly because within a month, I'd had that traumatic breakup, but then just a few months later, within a month of each other, I lost my business and my family, my health, my home, and all of my friends, And so that was traumatic in itself. You know what I mean? So it was processing that. I was so devastated and my health was such that like, I just lived in a fog every day, like trying to just figure out how to not die alone in my car, which sounds crazy to laugh about, but now, some time has passed since that has been the case. And I've been healthier long enough to where now I can look back and really think about the gravity of what was happening to me, but also because I made sure, not to spiritually bypass what was happening to me. I made sure to process those feelings as they occurred. And so now I can kind of laugh about like, wow, that was a close one. That was pretty rocky there for a minute. But it was in the moment, it was so intense that I couldn't, there's no words to describe like the lost feeling that you have in a particular situation like that.
Yeah. I To hear you explain it all like that, um, I just have to say, like, I feel sorry. I want to apologize to you for not reaching out as a friend, during that time. Just like I mean, I think we had a couple of brief communications, but I had no idea what everything that was going on.
Yeah.
Um, and that's incredible what you went through. So,
I mean, please don't even worry about it. You're one of the few people. I was just talking to earlier today, one of the few people, and I told her this too because I think it's important to tell people, um, you know, you're one of the few people who actually are still around. Not a single person from my previous life is around. My old life, whatever you would call that, the
yeah,
previous 40 years of my life. Not a single person is around except you and another beautiful soul that I met because of this wonderful podcast.
yeah,
And it's pretty incredible. But you know what that does when you lose everything like that is it gives the universe room to bring you better things. Not that anyone is better than others, but better things for you, because
yeah,
maybe that career and that lifestyle and those friends are beautiful, perfect um, ornaments in somebody else's life. So it's not
hmm,
that anything that comes to me now that I really have appreciation for and love for and all of that is better than my old life or anything, people, places, and things from my old life. It's just I'm I'm just realizing what things are perfect for me, and
yeah,
thank God for that. Really, like for that opportunity. Like thank God that I mean, it was a hard ride, a wild ride, a rough ride, but I made it through and I knew I was going to make it through because you know what I kept thinking, Lauren, and you're going to appreciate this. I kept thinking, God knows I'm trying to save the world. And there is no way in hell God is going to let someone who is trying to save the world die alone in their car. So, bitch, you're not going to die alone in your car. Quit feeling sorry for yourself.
wow,
And that's really like all it took was just knowing that like I know who I am as a person and this is not how I'm going out.
yeah,
No, you know but I mean, to speak to what what you said, I don't want you to feel guilty at all. I am happy when every time I would check in on you, you would tell me about how um, your family was getting closer, and
yeah,
you know you're watching the things that. Thank goodness you were keeping track of what was going on in the world because I wasn't. So you get to fill me in.
yeah,
But like just having like that connection with you, even if we only touch base every few months or whatever it was, man, like that kept me going too. Like here is one of the few people that believes in what I'm trying to do and believes in me, and I know that they have my back. Like I knew that you were there for me, you
yeah,
know.
yeah. I mean, I guess, like, when we were working on that campaign and everything um, just sort of shut down. And I knew like you were having some health issues. I knew, some of that, but yeah, I just, I just had the sense that, that for whatever reason we were kind of pausing. I was getting into my busy season then too, that it was just kind of a pause and that, we release it into
Mm.
the universe and if it comes back, it comes back. Right. So,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. And here we are.
Yeah.
Season 2. Here we
Yeah.
go. Let's go. But sometimes life be like that. And man, I got to in that time I got to explore all babies. Will you shut the door for me? Oh yeah, 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 yeah. Um, I got to explore like so many different ideas and philosophies and stuff that I'd never heard of. Oh wait, why did I do that? That's not what I meant. No, 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 that's not what I meant. Here, take that, baby. And because so the spiritual awakening aspect of it, you know, because when you all of a sudden, so I like to talk about it in terms of tarot, but it's really like psychology, right? Like when you find yourself in hermit mode, is what they call it in tarot. But when you find yourself like stuck at home, isolated from people, I certainly was because I was bedridden, you know. Um, you really don't have a choice but to think deeply about yourself, think deeply about the world and what you're doing here and all of that stuff, you know. And as much as I would have liked to distract myself with, you know, people and things and, you know, whatever, I didn't have people visiting me. I didn't have, you know what I mean? So I was really, really isolated. And what happened there was that I had to reach out online. I had to connect with people online, because I felt like I was going to go crazy if I didn't, you know.
Yeah.
And so I started joining different groups and seeing what they were all about. And it was like God was giving me like this roadmap of all of these little spiritual nuggets from each of these groups that was kind of like helping me as new stuff would come up, like um because I was having to process stuff very quickly because things were happening very quickly. You know, you don't work, you run out of money, you can't pay your bills, you know, like there's a chain of events that happens really quickly. And one of the things that was hardest to process was when I asked my son's grandparents to take them because I physically could not care for my children. I couldn't get up
Yeah.
and cook for them. I couldn't, you know what I mean? I couldn't go with them outside. It was just, I was stuck in bed. Having to process that feeling of like being a failure as a parent, you know, like I knew that, yeah, I'm sick, and that's like a pretty good excuse for not being able to care for your children for a while, but that still doesn't mean that you don't process the feeling of not caring for your children, you know,
Yeah.
especially because they weren't staying with me. They were, you know, they were staying with their grandma and grandpa, and I was just in bed every day without hearing my kids around, you know, without all of the stuff that kids bring to a household, you know. And it was like having to process like what if this is my life now, you know, what if this is my life and I don't get to, you know, am I, if I'm bedridden forever, because I didn't, at this point I didn't know what was happening, you know. So if I'm bedridden forever, do I try to uh you know, I don't want to be a burden on anyone, you know, but I do want my kids to be taken care of. So if that means that they can't live with me, then they can't live with me, you know. And this was a very, very intense emotion, not just emotion, but like a psychological rewiring that was happening in my brain. And as I was talking with people online, I was also helping people who had been in relationships with narcissists and stuff kind of process that. And so I was doing my work online, but I was also going into these other groups and just looking into different types of spiritual communities. And like I said, the things that I learned it during that time, synchronistically came to me at exact moments that I needed to learn those concepts so that I could manage to get through what I through at that particular time without losing my mind. You know, it was so synchronistic, pieces of data, like data, you know, that were coming to me at exact moments that I needed to learn them, that like the only conclusion that I was ever able to come up with that was that those new perspectives and ideas and belief systems and things like that were brought to me divine me, or I was divinely guided to them, because if those things had not entered my consciousness at the times that they did, I might not be here. You know, I might not have had the mental and physical determination and wherewithal to get through what I was getting through. And it was all because I was receiving, you know, spiritual guidance and support that I needed when I needed it at the exact moments that I needed it. It was magical, like the way that it happened. And it got me through that whole illness, like spirit, God, the most high, my higher self, whatever you would call it, is what got me through all of that without, losing my grip on myself, you
Yeah.
know? It was, and so when I say magical, like that's just because I can't think of another word for it.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
I definitely I felt that too through a lot of this where like there would be these shifts and it would just feel like I'm not like my ego was just sort of taking a back seat and stuff was happening and I was saying things that, like it wasn't
Mm.
it it just it was big in a way that I'm normally not. I don't know if that makes
I
sense.
know exactly. I know exactly what you mean. And tell me if you felt anything this dramatic. But I literally, and I expressed this to my son's dad too. There was a moment when I was realizing of his lack of care for me and my family. And it felt literally like, and I perceived it as God literally lifted me up out of my body, set me aside, and then told that man to leave my house.
Yep.
And that's, I am not even joking. It was that dramatic. And when I told that months later, I told that to him, and he said, I know it and I believe it because something in your eyes changed. It was that dramatic where higher self or whatever you want to call it steps in, like, oh no, we're doing this. This is what we're doing.
Yeah. And I experienced that my wife and I going through all this, like there were a lot and you could tell like on her end, I could see it on her end. Like it was like this is the transformation that's coming. You can't fight it. And
Mm-hmm.
um,
Mm-hmm.
and it was just like it's a karmic thing and it's gonna happen and you just sit back and you let it happen and then your life has changed,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, ours didn't go that route. He After all of that, about a month later, he wanted to talk about getting back together. And I remember thinking, and I told him this too, because I try to always be as honest as I can with him. Like, I cannot spend the rest of my life waiting for you to turn on me again, And I am not, there is nothing there's nothing in the dynamic of our relationship that lets me believe and trust that that's not what's going to happen. I said, and I told him, if you want to work on trust and, you know, um, respect and all of the things that were lacking from that relationship, and you want to take actions toward that, then I'm open to that. But he was not.
Yeah.
He was not willing to allow that karma to catch up with us in our relationship. And so it's really interesting and beautiful to hear it from somebody where it did, and it was, you both held each other and yourselves to account. And that's, people say karma's a bitch, but no, she's not. She's beautiful. She's a beautiful teacher. So anyways, yeah, man, it's been pretty freaking intense. But uh you know being able to like look back over it, I feel like this is the trials and tribulations that I needed to go through to be the kind of person that can run the company that I'm trying to build, you
Yeah.
know and
Yeah.
thank God, you know
Um, yeah, I that thought crossed my mind, once I knew everything you were going through that if your objective is to um, build a company, an application that connects people, um, and brings people together, you have to feel the reality on some cosmic level or whatever, you have to feel that intensity of
Oh my
separation.
goodness. Oh my goodness, that's a beautiful way to put it. Very accurate. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I've seen, I've seen that element before, before life changes and stuff. So
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting how you tell the universe that you want something and it knows that you want it because you think about it when you go to sleep, you think about it when you wake up in the morning, you think about it while you're doing all of the mundane things like your dishes and washing your car and, running kids here and there. And, it's in the back of your head. And so the universe knows that you want it. And when it's finally convinced that you're serious, it overhauls you. It's an overhaul.
Yeah.
And it's intense, man. But like, one of the things that I picked up from these spiritual communities that helped me a lot was um, forming a relationship with our ancestors, and understanding where our generational traumas came from so that we
Hmm.
can get rid of them,
Hmm.
and realizing that there is nothing new under the sun, and every single one of our ancestors have been through these trials and tribulations just as we have, and
Yeah.
some of them failed and some of them passed these tests, that the universe gives us. And the more we do that, the more each generation does that, the more we're elevating, we're contributing to the evolution of humanity. And and I'm not like patting myself on the back or anything. It's just the understanding and knowing that that's what we're doing makes it less traumatic. It makes it feel like a victory. Every time you get through one of those tests and you realize like, oh wait, I did pass. I did pass that test. Um, it makes you feel so much more confident and capable and able and correct in your thinking, which is huge because if you are going to have the audacity to accept that you have a life's purpose, then you have to also have the strength of character to know that you're doing the right thing. And that's how you get that strength of character is through those tests.
Yeah. Um, I think what I went through with my relationships, all of my relationships, I think, like you said, it helps perfect the way you think about things, because when you're carrying that childhood trauma, and you're not, um, I just feel like uh, it affects like how you go through your world, um, and what when you go through these big changes, like I just feel like I see more clearly, like all the relationships around me, like everything just became so much clearer on the other side
Mm-hmm.
of it. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there's still, I'm still kind of, not in the thick of it because I am getting my health back for sure, right? But there's still like, I'm trying to form some stability for me and my kids, we're going to have to move here. I think this is crazy. We're going to have to move by September 30th, which is the day that I had to be out of my house last year, so I'm looking at my life in terms of an anniversary coming up. And it's like you said, like I can see clearly, um, you know, what the right way forward is, what is going to be good and beneficial for me and my family and my company and, my projects and all of that, in a way that I didn't have the awareness, not just awareness of, relationships and how I was conducting myself in the world, but like self-awareness in general. It's a different level now. I feel like I've been pretty self-aware my whole adult life, but it's a different level now. And it's encouraging because like I know, I've learned, what level of strength my steel has,
Yeah.
I like to say I'm fireproof now. Like if going through that experience isn't going to break a person, what is? What will? Not that
Yeah.
I'm challenging the universe, but I'm humbled by the universe. The test that
Yeah.
it can throw at you, what God can send you, and humbled by the strength of spirit. That connection, because without understanding that I'm a spiritual being having a human experience and not the other way around, I'm not sure that I would have made it through that.
Yeah. And I'm just going to warn you, a chihuahua may start barking here in a second.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, Amy's home, and
Yay!
and then now the chihuahuas have discovered each other and are growling. Yeah.
That's
Can you,
okay.
uh,
Hi, Amy.
Lindsay says hi. I have headphones in, so she can't.
Oh, okay.
Amy says hi back.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah,
Well,
I was gonna say, I'm sorry, I'm a geek on astrology, but I mean,
please do.
I remember
Yes.
I remember talking to you about it, several months ago, but that you were, what was it? It's Vedic astrology, but the Vindoshri Dasha cycle. I think I pronounced that wrong. Like I saw yours, and I can't remember if it was like K2 or something, but but that was, I mean, it exactly spoke to that, like going through the most intense and spiritual experience that you could possibly have.
Yeah.
I think it's K2. Yeah. Or
Okay.
Rahu, I don't
So,
remember.
and and that's kind of the magic in it all too, isn't it? It was written in the stars
Yeah.
that this was going to happen in my life. And I believe in spiritual contracts. I believe that I signed a contract. I agreed to all of this before I came down here. And that's
Yeah.
mind blowing. That is like, oh man, my higher self knew that I was going to go through this and was still like, okay, let's do it.
Yeah.
Like, oh,
Yeah.
maybe my higher self is a badass. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I think we're all stronger after 2 years, but
Yeah, true.
I think that there's shit coming that is gonna like we're gonna look at the pandemic and go, man,
Oh, that was a cakewalk.
that was different, but this is really really good.
This is something
intense.
else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to get back together and talk about that sometime, because yeah,
Oh,
like
yeah.
if you look at the astrology, like I think today there's like a yacht actually, or like maybe Jupiter trine Venus, like a really good place, but then pretty much this weekend on, it's just like
Really?
so, like, I mean, we had Uranus conjunct the North Node, and then, but like, yeah, Mars goes retrograde and in Gemini, and it's
Oh
just
my.
it's gonna be
You know
I
what?
mean,
That makes me excited though, because what I have planned for this weekend is camping out all weekend and doing a spiritual fast. And I kind of am excited to hear that like the energy is going to be going psh, because I couldn't have timed my camping trip any better.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
like that's where you want to be when the shit's hitting the fan astrologically, right? You want to be in the woods by
Yeah.
yourself.
Well, I don't know if you'll feel as much. I mean, I think you'll still have some good energy this weekend, maybe, but yeah, I mean, especially when we get into like October, and the eclipses and like Mars fully retrograde, like.
Well, let's do that, man. Let's do that while I still have this gorgeous wall behind me. I love my purple wall. Let's do that before I move out of this studio, and we can have like an astrology. If you want, we can get real crazy and like make predictions and stuff for the next year.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not, I wouldn't say I'm a professional astrologer, you know? So, I mean, there's a guy that I follow that he actually did predict the pandemic
Yeah.
but, you know, I'm not at that level, but yeah, we should get back together and just sort of
No,
talk about,
maybe
you
not
know,
predictions, but speculations.
yeah, because I mean, like so many things have gotten really clear now in terms of
Yeah.
who the supervillains are. Like
Right?
one of them has like a you know, Dr. Evil black outfit that was made for him. And then like there's another guy. I think he's like it's like a German central banker. It's not a recognized name,
Hmm.
but he looks like Batman's like the penguin, that villain.
Yeah.
It's just like you just
Oh,
feel
that's so
like
funny.
yeah, I can't remember. I'd have to look up the guy's name. But
You
I
know,
mean,
Jimmy Dore pointed out something really funny too. He said that Bill Gates kind of looks like an evil Mr. Rogers because he always wears a sweater vest and he talks real calming, but he's also trying to take over the world and jab people.
yeah, yeah.
I'm like, man, yeah, it you could, I mean, whoever is writing this script is doing a fantastic job keeping us on our toes, you know?
Yeah. Well, and it's also just a little on the nose too, you know? I mean, it's like, come on. I mean,
Yes, exactly. Like, really, come
yeah,
on.
yeah,
There's not a lot of subtlety anymore, which is kind of where I like to live. Like, let's have it all out in the open, you
yeah,
know?
yeah,
Who needs subtlety when you can have brazenness, like
yeah,
audacity?
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm seeing stuff now. I just thought, I look around like, okay, we're gonna buy that? Really? Okay.
You guys are just really going to go along with that? Yeah. Oh, all right. All
Yeah.
right. I keep talking to people. It's the crypto space is really fascinating for me right now because man, we can get into that another time too. Like I said, I would love to do an astrology based speculation
Oh,
podcast.
yeah, and crypto. We gotta everyone. All right,
Ah,
first, well, here's a preview. Everyone buy Cult or
okay.
Revolt token, please.
Okay.
Check out. Just go to
Okay.
the website. Look it out. Look it up. It's cultdao.io and listen to
Okay.
the. You can read the manifesto or the Charlie Chaplin speech from what is it, the Great Dictator? That's part of their website. I mean, it is
Okay. Yeah.
totally in line with everything that all of us are trying to do. And it could be
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
cryptocurrency that changes the world. So, and
Yeah,
we could
well,
talk about,
and I
sorry, go
mean,
ahead.
all of our projects. No, I was just gonna say all of our projects all together, they're gonna change the world. It's gonna be, it's, I'm fucking stoked. I
Yeah.
really am,
Yeah.
in a way that I really need to be too.
Yeah. I think all the, through you and all these channels, I think the tools of the new world are coming and,
Mhm.
they're going to make things better.
Oh yeah,
So,
absolutely.
yeah.
Thanks for hanging in there with me, man.
Yeah. I'm rooting for this. I mean, I'm rooting for you. And I really, I want all of what you've gone through the past couple years to be worth it.
Oh yeah,
And I know they will be.
I know it too. Yep, I do. Thank you so much.
Yeah. You're welcome. All right. Well, it's
All
good to
right.
talk to you.
Yeah, I'll talk to you again real soon.
All right. Talk to you later.
Okay.
I hope you enjoyed this episode. It's really good to be back with all of you. I have much more content planned, not just podcasts, but fun stuff that we can use to interact with each other as well, along with just a little bit more silliness to put on the channel because sometimes Better Than can be a little on the serious side, and we need to balance that out with some silliness. So thank you all for sticking there with me over this last year. It is not it's not expected or necessary for viewers, subscribers to hang in there while you take a whole year's break, but a lot of you did, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate you, and I can't wait to offer you a lot more content, bring you a lot more value, for the attention that you give us here at Better Than. So thank you so much, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.